San Bruno Beacon, 4F, con artist Trump loves war. Four F con artist Trump loves war. Trump's bizarre statements. Let's start with a quote from the 34th U.S. President Dwight Eisenhower. I hate war as only a soldier can. General Dwight D. Eisenhower, address before the Canadian Club, Ottawa, Canada, January 10, 1946. The time, Thursday, November 12, 2015. The place, Iowa Central Community College, Fort Dodge, Iowa. The event, a surreal Trump presidential campaign rally. The speaker, loudmouth, exhibitionist, con artist, presidential candidate Trump. Trump's bizarre statements. I love war. I'm good at war. I've had a lot of wars of my own. I'm really good at war. I love war in a certain way, but only when we win. 4F con artist Trump loves war. Trump's asinine 2015 campaign statements. Could you imagine former President Eisenhower, who was a five-star U.S. Army general, the supreme Allied commander of the Allied Expeditionary Force in Europe during World War II, and the man who led the planning and carrying out of the D-Day invasion, Operation Overlord, making these types of insane, ludicrous statements when he was on the campaign trail? As a long-shot presidential candidate, Trump's asinine 2015 campaign statements about his war-related skills could be easily dismissed. These were the laughable utterances of a deranged buffoon who imagined himself as a third-world generalissimo parading around in jackboots, riding crop in hand, wearing highway patrolman-style sunglasses, a gaudy military uniform covered with ribbons, medals, gold leaf-encrusted sleeves, collar and shoulders covered with gold stars, topped off with a gold crown. This bizarre, outrageous lunatic didn't have to be taken seriously. His campaign was an aberration. Trump wasn't going to get the Republican presidential nomination, so there was no chance he would ever be the President of the United States. 4F, con artist Trump loves war. Trump's addled brain. Fast forward about 2 years to August 2017. 4F con artist Trump won the 2016 presidential election and is now the President of the United States. It's no surprise that under this lunatic's manic depressive leadership, the United States is on the verge of a war in North Korea that could spark World War III. The lunatic from the 2015 Republican primaries is now the president. Yesterday's mad-mouth lunatic is today's president. Trump's I love war outbursts are now relevant because this take your choice, buffoon, madman, idiots, possible dimension-driven insanity has walked the United States to the edge of a world war. That being said, let's analyze this maniac's bizarre 2015 campaign rally statements. 1. I love war. In the black and gray-hued kaleidoscope fantasy world, beneath the orange coiffed hair, inside Trump's addled brain, is a place where war is something to love. 4F con artist Trump loves war. Trump's insane, misguided love of war. 1. Continued. I love war. Where did Trump's insane, misguided love of war begin? Trump's parents sent the 13-year-old unruly Trump to the New York Military Academy for 5 years. He graduated from 12th grade at the New York Military Academy as a cadet captain. On December 15, 2016, Business Insider published an article titled, "Trump Says This Private Boarding School Gave Him More Military Training Than the Army Could." On September 8, 2015, the New York Times published an article titled, "Donald Trump Likens His Schooling to Military Service in Book." This article observed, begin quote, "Donald J. Trump, who received draft deferments through much of the Vietnam War, told the author of a coming biography that he nevertheless always felt that I was in the military because of his education at a military-themed boarding school." End quote. 4F con artist Trump loves war. 0 real military service. 1. Continued. I love war. Presidential candidate Trump said his experience at the New York Military Academy, an expensive high school where he was sent by his parents to correct his alleged bad behavior, gave him more training militarily than a lot of the guys that go into the military. Trump, the 4F con artist, had the unmitigated goal and audacity to advance his candidacy and insult U.S. military veterans by telling voters that he received more military training as a high school military academy cadet than the real soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines who fought in Vietnam and did not dodge military service like he did. Trump will never know if he is right or wrong about this issue because he has 0 real military service, the byproduct of his numerous draft deferments. The New York Military Academy is not West Point, Annapolis, or the Air Force Academy. After he graduated from the New York Military Academy, Trump avoided these colleges that would have required him to join the real military and possibly end up in the middle of the Vietnam War, exposing himself to the real dangers of warfare. "4F con artist Trump loves war." With his father, Fred Trump, at the local draft office. 1. Continued. I love war. According to an August 1st, 2016 New York Times story titled, "Donald Trump's Draft Deferments, 4 for College, 1 for Bad Feet," begin quote, after his 18th birthday in June 1964, Mr. Trump registered with the Selective Service system. It was the summer after his graduation from the New York Military Academy, and Mr. Trump recalled filling out his Selective Service papers with his father, Fred Trump, at the local draft office on Jamaica Avenue in Queens. End quote. Was Trump such a feeble daddy's boy that it was necessary for his daddy to accompany him to the draft office and hold his hand while he signed up with the Selective Service system? Following his visit to the local draft board with Daddy, Trump received the first of his 4 education draft deferments that, 8 years later, in 1972, would ultimately be topped off with a final minor medical. 4F con artist Trump loves war. Wiggle out of military service. 1. Continued. I love war. Bone spur excuse that allowed him to wiggle out of military service with a 4F, unfit for service classification. Mr. I Love War Trump loves war so much that when he had the opportunity to go to war handed to him on a silver platter by his Uncle Sam, he spent 8 years ducking and dodging military service that could have landed him in the middle of a battlefield during the Vietnam War. 2. I'm good at war. The fact is that when Trump had an opportunity to go to war in Vietnam during the Vietnam War, the only thing that Mr. I Love War, I'm good at war Trump was good at was keeping himself as far away from military service as possible and keeping his body off the battlefield, cowering in a proverbial safe space in one of his daddy's high-priced homes. 4F, con artist Trump loves war. War against common sense and decency. 3. I've had a lot of wars of my own. From a military perspective, Trump's biggest war was the one that he had with his local draft board to dodge military service, while tens of thousands of brave soldiers, sailors, Marines, and airmen were being killed in Vietnam fulfilling their military obligation. Mr. I Love War Trump was slithering down to the local draft board, accompanied by his daddy, to avoid military service and make sure he would not be sent to the battlefields of Vietnam. From a military perspective, I believe that Trump has spent most of his life at war against common sense and decency. In my opinion, Trump's adult life has been a cesspool of specious business deals, misanthropic, misogynist behavior, an unhealthy disregard for the law, and a bad habit of closely associating himself with repugnant, vile, or loathsome characters. The laundry list of Trump's self-inflicted wars can be found in the Atlantic's January 23, 2017 article titled "The Many Scandals of Donald Trump, a Cheat Sheet." 4F con artist Trump loves war. Bold-faced lie. 4. I'm really good at war. Trump would have us believe that he is really good at war. From both a military and civilian standpoint, this is a bold-faced lie. From a military standpoint, Trump's Uncle Sam handed him the opportunity to become good at war on a proverbial silver platter. Trump never showed up to acquire the skill set necessary to become really good at war. Trump trashed this opportunity by not applying to one of the U.S. service academies after graduating from the New York Military Academy, and then, after spending 8 years avoiding the draft with 4 education draft deferments, and finally, when the education deferments ran out, Trump took a final pass on the Vietnam War by using a medical deferment for what could be described as a minor medical condition. 4F con artist Trump loves war. Nightmare landlord. 4. Continued. I'm really good at war. From a civilian standpoint, in the competitive war that is the business world, Trump's business career is littered with failed, bankrupt businesses, mountains of lawsuits, a laundry list of fines from government agencies, allegations of connections with mobsters, organized crime figures, the pain and suffering of people, such as Trump University students who made the mistake of doing business with Trump, women alleging sexual assault, sleazy, vile, unprofessional conduct such as the intimidation of elderly tenants that, according to a March 28, 2016 CNN Money article titled "Donald Trump Was a Nightmare Landlord in the 1980s," included, but was not limited to, allegedly, 1. Cutting off tenants' hot water and heat in the middle of a freezing New York winter. 2. Allowing construction workers to drill holes above the bedroom of a dying cancer patient with emphysema and allowing dust into the bedroom. 3. Not repairing leaking water pipes. 4. Allowing a rodent infestation in the building, etc. 4F con artist Trump loves war. Real estate empire on a proverbial gold-plated platter. 4. Continued. I'm really good at war. President Trump's wealthy father handed him a real estate empire on a proverbial gold-plated platter. Trump is the epitome of a spoiled, abusive, obnoxious, rich kid who was born on third base and thought he hit a triple. Some observers speculate that if Trump stopped working 30 years ago and invested his massive inheritance in a stock index fund, he would be worth billions of dollars more than he is today. Maybe, maybe not. That being said, we can say with certainty that Trump has used his immense wealth to inflict a lot of pain, suffering, and unhappiness on many people. Trump has spent an inordinate amount of his time suing and being sued, being fined by government agencies, bankrupting four companies, being accused of sexual assault, intimidating and harassing the elderly, etc. In my opinion, Trump is not really good at war in any sense of the word. Trump hides his ineptitude behind piles of money and armies of lawyers. Trump is in serious need of human being lessons. 4F con artist Trump loves war. In love with war. 5. I love war in a certain way, but only when we win. Well, based upon what we know about Trump, it's fair to say that former Cadet Captain Trump does love war in a certain way. That certain way would be as a New York Military Academy NYMA cadet marching around a safe, manicured parade field in Cornwall-on-Hudson, New York, in a faux West Point cadet full-dress parade uniform, or studying historical wars and battles in his NYMA history class. Trump appears to be in love with war in the abstract, as long as he doesn't have to join the real military and face the actual risk of fighting in a war. During the 2008 presidential campaign, presidential candidate, U.S. Senator, and Vietnam War hero John McCain stated, begin quote, "Only a fool or a fraud talks tough or romantically about war. I hate war, and I know how terrible its costs are." End quote. "4F con artist Trump loves war. Faux tough guy talk. Final observations. Between 1964 and 1972, Donald Trump received 4 education draft deferments, and when the education draft deferments were no longer available to Trump, he came up with a final, minor medical, bone spur excuse that allowed him to wiggle out of military service during the Vietnam War with a 4F, unfit for service, classification. For blowhard, faux tough guy presidential candidate Trump, being a 4F draft dodger was a troublesome bit of Trump's personal history that required obfuscation behind a veil of faux tough guy talk and other nonsense. At the end of the day, there were enough voters who didn't mind having a 4F draft dodger as Commander-in-Chief of the U.S. Armed Forces. The result of this bad decision to elect this 4F draft dodger to the presidency of the United States continues to haunt our nation. San Bruno Beacon, end of